when my dad committed suicide, that hurt me only because God put on my heart to write a book on suicide. And a month after I released what I thought was my first draft or first copy, final copy rather, he killed himself. And so I had to
Mhm.
experience it. And I was
Yeah.
upset with God because I'm like, you didn't show me any signs. I'm here doing what you said, and you allowed this to happen. I could have said something to him. And it took me 2 years to get
Mhm.
past that because I feel like I have been faithful, and I was faithful doing
Mhm.
all of this. But in it, he showed me, for one, we're not saved by our works. So, that when I was doing all that stuff, I should have only been doing it because I love him and not to get him to love me or to bless me because I already was. So it was a lot of things that I learned in it. But what I loved is that he didn't beat me down. I didn't feel like he let me vent. And
Mhm.
it reminded me of the story of Elijah when Elijah was running from Jezebel
Mhm.
after he done killed all these prophets or whatever. And he runs to this place and he wanted to die. And so when the angel came to minister to him, the angel wasn't telling him, get up, do this. He wasn't harsh with him. What he did was he fed him. He let him rest. And he ministered to him, and then he was able to have the strength to keep going. And I think that's the part that church has not practiced. The word says,
Mhm.
with loving kindness
I
shall I
draw.
draw you. Now, Mark, I must ask this. What is it about church that bothers you so much? Personally, DeMero, it's the people. I think they're all just a bunch of hypocrites. Some of the biggest whores I know drink, curse, and call themselves Christian. Well, Curetia Washington, welcome to another episode of Rock with Me.
Yes. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're on chapter 18 entitled Good Men. However, our conversation today is going to be on when your witness is rejected. So, just a quick recap of the chapter. Mark is sleeping on his friend Cameron's couch after having an encounter or a night with Shell that didn't go so well. He finally confessed after she danced for him that he was not interested in her and that he wanted to leave her. And he thought it uh, not a smart idea to go back to her house or the house that they shared to sleep after sharing that with her because it probably could have been detrimental to him. So he's at his friend Cameron's house, sleeping on the couch. Cameron's new neighbor, DeMero, comes across the street to borrow a drill. And they end up in this conversation where Mark is kind of not using DeMero, but he's confiding in DeMero because DeMero is a counselor about his relationship or his issue with his son's mother, Shell. And so in the conversation, he tells DeMero or mentions that his Shell is crazy. However, Mark he doesn't seem to see his part in the whole crazy scheme of things. Mark slept with her the first day he met her. And I think that's a bit crazy. And then by the end of that week, he had her pregnant. So now my question to you is, why do you think it's easy for Mark to see Shell's craziness but not his own?
Because that would mean he's lacking or taking on ownership. He's not taking the accountability that you are now sleeping on a couch after you basically said to me, I don't love you, after we've been playing house. Um, and you expect my emotions to be calm. They wouldn't be calm. Because why would I think you don't love me? And we're in a house together, we're sleeping together. You come home from work to this same house, I come to this same house. So we're doing everything that a couple, a marriage, what it looks like would do. So yes, I'm going to assume that you loved me. Yes, it was quick and we went from one stage to the next. But we also started living together directly after. So I wouldn't assume that I'm just your friend.
Absolutely. Um, and I think just on Mark part, it's the like that self-righteous attitude,
Yeah.
when we don't look and examine our own behaviors, we make excuses like, well, they're crazier than me. However, he added to that situation. He knew he was very much aware that she wanted to be married. However, I know he was doing it for his son, but still, you don't egg a person on. You know you can feel it when a person loves you. And then, like his sister Mina said in a few chapters back, he was receiving her wife duties. He's
Mhm.
eating the food she makes, using the towels that she wash in the house that she's making comfortable for him. You're making it appear that you want this too.
Yes. And so don't call me crazy because I'm doing what I assume based off of your energy was reciprocated. I'm not crazy. I'm crazy probably for falling for you at this point. However, I'm not crazy for feeling how I feel because you allowed me to get to this place. I didn't just wake up and decide this is what this was based upon your actions, your choices, and decisions. This is how we got here.
Yeah, that's why the Bible tells us to guard our heart with all diligence, because we
Yeah.
can get carried away, and we definitely, especially with men. I learned this from my brothers.
Mhm.
Men will string you along. They'll know, certain, not every man, but most men will string you along. They know what you want, but if you're fearful in saying it, they will string you along and get what they want. And then they will come
Mhm.
back and say, "Oh no, that's not what this was." So with
Yeah.
men, you have to get them to confess. What
You
are
know
what are
what?
we doing?
And I agree with that. It's funny. My brother taught me something in my older years because he's my younger brother. But he said something to me that he was like, Karita, and for people who I'll say are naive to street or naive to the game of people playing games in
Mhm.
relationships, you can easily get caught up in that web. Um, he said something to me. He said, Karita, a guy will tell you whatever they think you want to hear. And you think, well, I'm in my 30s, like, boy, what? I know people are not still playing these type of games. And the end is. And is. I'm like about to be 50, and it's amazing to me that what we're reading in chapter 18 is really happening in real life.
Mhm.
Like people are really doing this. And a lot of the times, you know, not just females get caught up in this, guys, get caught up in this too. But you find out you're just the booty call, you're just the one night stand, but you have attached yourself to this person. And although this person probably gave you all the signs, but because you're looking for and you're with hopes that you will be the one. You know what I'm saying? You get caught up in this web. And then they'll say, well, I mean, you knew that this is what this was in the beginning. And you're like, no, no. I mean, what you said and what we did is two totally different things. And that's kind of how it was even in this. What he said and what he did was two different things. He was already in a relationship. And then you guys had quote unquote a one night stand. We went from a one night stand to I'm pregnant, now we're together. Literally in a short amount of time, and that's what's happening even in our lives today. This is real. This is really happening. People are really doing it, but people really don't want to take accountability for when the next person is in a rage. They're like, man, they knew what this was. You like, no. I told you what I wanted, what I desired, and you made it seem like it was okay without saying literally, but you put the actions with what you didn't say. And so I went off of actions versus what you said, and we got to this.
Yeah, but we got to do both because you can
We
feel
do.
it. Like you can definitely feel it, and it's fear that
Yeah, it
makes
is.
us, like, okay, well, I ain't gonna question it because or make excuses like, well, he's doing this and he's doing that, even though I don't feel the connection, or he's not
Yeah,
saying I love you, or or he hasn't really identified me as his woman. He's not, he don't show me off or introduce me as his woman. It's
which
the
are all
fear.
signs.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
absolutely.
there are signs, but again, when we're looking for this thing called love in all the wrong places, sometimes we will really, really settle for that action versus not just your mouth verbally, but or we'll settle for the verbal and don't have the action, whichever we can get, just so that we can feel like this is a relationship.
Yeah, but that's why
And
we have to take ownership of
we do.
ourselves, and that's in because it's both. I'm saying that with both Mark and
Oh
Shell,
yeah,
but Mark
most
being
definitely.
the one who's quote unquote, like he's calling, now calling her crazy.
Yeah,
That's my point. Like, okay, if
yeah.
she's crazy, it's like if I walked up to a dog, a stray dog, and grabbed him by the ears and he bit me, should I be the one called, or should the dog be called crazy, or me? It's me, because
No,
it's the
it's
nature of the
me
dog
to
to
initiate
bite.
it.
Yeah. So what I'm
Yeah,
saying with Mark, if he was the more mature one, the more sensible one, then you should know that you don't meet somebody on the first day and sleep with them, and then the first week of knowing them, sleep with them unprotected because you didn't
yeah.
want to go and get, what you
And
needed.
both are adults, so they both are accountable in that regard. Um, she knew just as well as he did, laying down unprotected. This is a possibility
Absolutely.
that this can happen. I mean, but for to me, he just didn't take his accountability about his part of it. Because first thing you want to say is she's crazy, but you opened the door to this. You know,
Yeah.
um,
And then
if this is
unfortunately, I would say I wanted to add, like, when we don't admit like our part, because he could have said, she's acting crazy, but yeah, I kind of added to it, and
that part, yeah,
I need to change. You can't change or get better. So Mark would just probably go to the next relationship, do the same crazy
yeah,
stuff, and get the same crazy results. And always calling somebody else crazy when
yeah,
really the common denominator is him. So it's
it's true.
important for us to see our part, even if the person did take it too far.
Yeah,
It's still like, well, what did I do, to add to
right.
that?
Right. I agree. I agree. If you don't ever acknowledge your part in something, you'll never know, the full outcome, and even moving forward to your future. You're gonna have to take ownership of some things. And that sometimes that's good, bad, or different. Because sometimes you're gonna take ownership and be like, oh, I did a great job. And then you're gonna take ownership and be like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best
Yeah,
decision.
absolutely.
And we all have made them. You know what I mean? Me being in a relationship that wasn't necessarily a great choice of decision of person. However, I've sat in the seat of feeling like maybe this is a relationship, but then you look at them and they're like different ways on different days. You're like, so maybe not,
Yeah,
because
but
people are really, and if you don't, like you said, make people take admitting to verbally, like, hey, are we in a relationship or not? And we as the woman, I can speak for my own self, we have to listen, get your what I call big girl panties on. You're gonna have to get some tough skin, because he may say, yeah, I like you, but not like that.
I'd rather hear that. Like, I'd rather hear that today than you waste my life, waste my
Push me
energy
along.
taken from me, because I could then go to the next person who wants it. Like, but I see now we have to guard our own heart. We have to do the work. We can't be
Yeah,
handing out our wife duties to men before we know what we're doing with them. They have to confess. They have to be the ones to say, You're my woman. I want this with you. They
Yeah.
supposed to be the visionaries. Actually, we talked about that pretty good in Bible study last night. And
Mhm.
I honestly believe when a man, I know a lot of us are eager as women to do, just be a wife and just, show that off. Honestly, being a wife is not, this, it's not, it takes people who want to work. If you don't like to work,
Stop,
you
it's
need to just be by
overrated.
yourself. Um, but I just feel like when men don't think they need any help, when they're never wrong, when a man cannot humble himself and say, okay, I could have did better there. He definitely is not looking for a helpmate. He's not looking for a wife. He may
Mhm.
want, call a woman his wife, but
He wants the
wife
call of
is
it,
a
not the act.
helpmate.
Yes.
She's actually there to help him. So she will identify some of those areas like, well, babe, you could have handled that a little differently. And if he's always projecting, or deject was it dejecting,
Hmm.
on you, like, well, you
Yeah.
could have did this, and you could, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's a recipe for abuse.
It is.
Actually, I was watching this video. I think it was a sermon that Devin Franklin, which is Megan Gooding's ex-husband.
Okay.
So he's or preacher or pastor, but he was
He's a
talking about,
pastor.
yeah, he's a pastor, but he was talking about
Mhm.
relationships and singleness. And girl, what he said was, he said, women should not be seeking after men. As a matter of fact, if we go back to that story in the garden, it was Adam who was broken. Eve
Uh,
wasn't. She didn't say anything. Adam was the one who needed help. And when he got up, he looked at her and said, "Oh, woman." He was excited about her.
yeah.
She hadn't said nothing because she was actually whole. And he said
Hmm.
he believes society is driving this message to make us feel like we need help from men, that we are broken. And it's all it is the mind games. Like, you need a man, you need a man. Because honestly, that's, I kind of believe when we get together, if we can really get together properly, we can turn some stuff around because we be fire together. When we can get together, and I think that's
We're
part of the
home.
reason why
I,
the enemy comes against us with our relationship so
yes,
hard.
and create division. It's funny you said what Megan Goodman's ex-husband said, because I still instill this in my daughters. I say this all the time, even when I'm mentoring women. And I tell them, I say, listen, God is so amazing. And I often use this. He said it wasn't good for man to be alone. He also said that we were to be the helpmeet to the man. And not that women don't have problems and go through things, because we do, but he made us intentionally with the abilities to be able to multitask in so many areas and capacities of life. So it was good for Adam to say, whoa, whoa, man. Like, wow, this is his softer part of him. This is that part that recognizes what he doesn't even see. And we as women don't realize what we really have. We don't even realize how much of a jewel we really are. Because if
Absolutely.
we really understood the fulfillment of what our job is, and what we really working with, if we really understood, there would be no way humanly possible men will be walking over or abusing us mentally or physically. There would be, because we know our own self-worth. We wouldn't even allow. And so that's why it's so important. And I believe that's why the enemy attacks the women the way he does as far as self-esteem. Because he knows that even a woman, even in her lowest, knows how to come back.
Yeah, she can
And if
make something happen. Because in
yes,
her is a womb, something that takes the man's seed and bring it to life.
yes,
We're
yes,
life givers, like you said, even in
yes,
our at the lowest. I mean, you
yes,
think of just a mama, like she gonna make it happen. She can have two
yes,
nickels, but she gonna figure out how to, you know,
that part.
feed her
And listen,
kids.
we gonna make it happen. I'm talking about, if that means we got to go without something, and we'll go without it, nobody else would even recognize that we're without, literally. And by the time we get through taking broken pieces and putting them back together and making something work, you'd be like, oh my God, that was amazing. How did you do? But God was so strategic when he made us. He put us from the man's rib. That wasn't just any part of the body. He didn't just find just any. No, no, no. It was a purpose in pulling us from the side. And so when we really understand our role and our position and our place, oh my gosh, what amazement. And as you and I like when you said that's why when we're together, that unity, that I'm telling you, it's nothing like a good woman fellowship. It's nothing like a good, wonderful group of women of all nationalities coming together. I'm talking about in harmony and peace. We literally are like a staircase. We build off of each other, literally. But in the same token, a woman can, man, take another woman and bring her all the way back downstairs. You know what I'm saying? So it's so
Absolutely.
important that we are team builders and not destroyers. Because the Bible is fulfilling what he said, it's life or death in his tongue. We have to be so careful with what we speak out of our mouths because I really am big on encouraging. And I really try hard to encourage our women because you see so many women struggling.
Yeah, but
And
we have to want to do it because it's
we
us.
do.
We have to know the truth, and we have
We
to,
do.
like this. So I don't deal with women no more, and we are unhealthy, but we have
Yeah.
to understand like it's the woman who's unhealthy, her background, and then praying. Honestly, it's going to take a lot of praying. Praying, how do I handle her? How do I
Yes.
deal with her? Because she needs to know, but I have to, still love on her. It may be from a distance today, but
Yes.
people can be restored later. But we do need to hear the truth about ourselves because we're such in
Most definitely.
a fallen state that we're not healthy for each other. And I know that because I've tried over and over and over and over and over again. And then I even got to the point was like, I don't like women. I'm just done. But God wouldn't, he wouldn't let it be. But I recognize the enemy's his trick. I recognize his trap. He's trying to keep us divided, and then he's trying to get us to continue to run after guys in a way that's out of order.
Yeah.
So now I want to go to this next one. During this conversation, Mark asked Demero for his advice on what he should do. And so Demero, he pretty much bounced it back what it's all you believe. And then as he's going on sharing how he would handle it, this is when Mark realizes that Demero is a Christian, he's a believer. And so he rejects it. He's like, I don't want to hear about that Jesus stuff, pretty much. So, asking you, have you ever witnessed to someone and they told you they don't want to hear all that Jesus stuff? And then how did you handle it?
Um, Before I got to where I am now, my level of maturity, my initial thing I was upset. And I thought, how disrespectful. And you ready to like, let me tell you about yourself. But then as I grew and I began to read the word more, the Bible told us that this would happen. So now I pray immediately. And I pray for the mind and the heart of the people because to know God is to love Him. And you clearly are like the Bible said, a fool has said it in his heart that there is no God. So I realized that my prayer has to be different. But I haven't always been here. Like I said, my initial thing, it hurt my feelings. I felt it was disrespectful. Like, really, I'm trying to tell you about Jesus. I'm trying to tell you about somebody who's healing, who's saved, who's delivered. But some people are not in that place. And you have to really respect the fact that some people are not where you feel like you are where they should be. Because sometimes we put people in a place. But when I learned that it required me to have to pray differently, oh, I intercede greatly for them, him, her, whomever, um, when they don't want to hear about my God. I really do, because I'm fearful for their life, really, and understanding that they truly can't understand what it is they're saying when they say they don't want to hear about my God. They don't understand.
Yeah, now, I mean, I've had that happen, not too many times. But they were asking for my advice. Kind of
Mhm.
like Mark and DeMero's situation. And my response was, well, this is all the advice I got you. So if you don't want the
Yeah,
Jesus advice, I don't know what to give you. But
that part.
I haven't really gotten upset. Even to the degree I was kind of witnessing to this lady just recently who was in she was a believer. I don't think she has stopped believing. I think she actually is offended by God, or just, in that state of not understanding because her son was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I get that because I've been there where I was upset with God. I just didn't stay away from church. So I do
Mm-hmm.
understand that this is a choice. It's a choice. And there's that scripture. Is it in Corinthians where Paul, he says, that I planted, Apollos watered, I watered,
Mm-hmm.
and then God brought the increase. So
Incredible.
your part in it may just be planting. And
That part.
when the seed is planted, you're, going underground, pushing it in the dirt so it doesn't look like anything. And so it's it's part of the process. So you never know
Yeah.
when God brings it up, and you might see him in heaven and be like, "Oh, okay, well you said you didn't even." So I'm understanding that now in my maturity, that this is not, it's nothing to be offended. And I actually believe that God doesn't always allow us to see, because then we would glory and say, "Hey, I was the one that brought him to Christ," so
Oh yeah, sometimes we do get the big head, but you know what? It's funny that you said that. My mom used to be a non-believer, and so and I'm grateful to God because my mom is a whole first lady. Uh, and who would have thought she wasn't, because she didn't believe, she believed in the spirit, but she just didn't, eh, you know, that was her thing. And then who would have thought she would have married a whole preacher? Wasn't on the radar, you know. But God has it, as you said, mysterious ways of doing things and why He does it. That's why now, again, because I had to grow to this maturity, my first response was, like I said, is to be mad. Like, that's disrespectful. What you mean you don't believe? But then the Lord matured me, and I grew. The more I stayed in the Word, I learned that, hey, this we're gonna come across this, but you have to be mature enough to know how to, first of all, after you plant every so often, God is amazing. He'll light across paths with people again. You go back and throw a little water again. And sometimes you find out later on in life, those same persons who didn't believe are now believers. So the thing is, live the life, set the examples, and move forward. But learn how to pray. I'm learning that it's so much power in an effective prayer, but you got to learn how to pray.
yeah, and me, I'm just more like, I'm a servant. Lord, what do you want me to do? I'm gonna plant. If they don't receive it, when I get to heaven, I done did my part. So, I kind of believe it's because the word says all will hear. All will hear. So whether you accept it or not, on Judgment Day, you can't squirm your way out of saying, "Well, I didn't know." He's like, "Nope. I sent
Uh,
Sheree, I sent Karita, I sent
yeah,
Jasmine, I sent John, and you said no." So
yeah,
I know that's the mission. It's not because it's
yeah.
obvious, clear in the Bible that's God's desire that all men be saved, but there's a hell for a reason. I mean, it
Exactly.
wasn't meant for us believers. It was meant, for the fallen demons. But it's clear that everybody is not going to be with the Lord because they're going to choose not to. So I now understand. I'm just a messenger. I'm just a messenger. I'm here. It's not. I'm not. There's no need for me to be offended because it's not my salvation. It's nothing. You're not really rejecting me. You're rejecting the Lord, and I'm just here doing what He told me to do.
Serving up.
Yes. So now this next question. Do you believe people have valid reasons to be offended with God?
I feel like people think they do. The reason being is even with the scenario you just gave, um, when people lose loved ones, I haven't lost a child to, a murder or a tragic or, I don't know how I would feel. So I speak from experiences of me empathizing with people, but my personal strong belief, and again, I had to grow to this. If you want to reign with him, you must suffer. So when you understand that you're gonna have to go through some things, he didn't say what things, but you're gonna have to go through some things. And some of these things may be tragic. Some of them may not even make any sense. Some people are like literally, they see their loved ones battling cancer and things of this nature, and they're like, God, why? But when I learned that it's a suffering way. You're gonna have to go through. Um, so for me, I understand. Now, I he said we could be angry, just don't sin. So when you learn the difference, God, I'm upset. I don't like this. I don't like how this feels. That's a normal reaction. It is. If you're human, you're gonna get upset. But just don't sin. That's it.
Yeah, and I do believe that people
Mhm.
have valid reasons to be offended with God because his ways are not our ways and our thoughts not his
Lots of
thoughts.
nice things.
And
Mhm.
if and when people are, they're not believers and they're not avid readers of the word, because you have to
Mhm.
dive in his word to gaze in his beauty.
Yes,
You're not going to know that. You're going to only know what man has told you,
that's
because
it.
a lot of people were sold, once you accept Jesus, your life is perfect. Your life is going to be this and that. So it depends on what message they bought when they
Yes,
came into the kingdom of God. And
yes,
then to their discipline and getting to know the Savior and knowing his thoughts and knowing his precepts and knowing his laws and knowing his promises, and then things that, that's a promise. Your
yes,
days will be full of trouble, but a lot of
yes.
people don't know that. So when you were ushered in with the belief that, oh, my life is going to be gravy from here on, it is,
Mhm.
it's really being offended with the man who told you that life was going to be gravy, because that's not what
True.
God says. So we have to know what the word says in order to really get through this.
That part.
Yeah, because when my dad committed suicide, that hurt me, only because God put on my heart to write a book on suicide. And a month after I released what I thought was my first draft, or first copy, final copy rather, he killed himself. And so I had to
Mhm.
experience it. And I was
Yes,
upset with God, because I'm like, you didn't show me any signs. I'm here doing what you said, and you allowed this to happen. I could have said something to him. And it took me 2 years to get
mhm.
past that, because I felt like I have been faithful, and I was faithful doing
Mhm.
all of this. But in it, he showed me, for one, we're not saved by our works. So, that when I was doing all that stuff, I should have only been doing it because I love him, and not to get him to love me or to bless me, because I already was. So it was a lot of things that I learned in it. But what I loved is that he didn't beat me down. I didn't feel like he let me vent. And
Mhm.
it reminded me of the story of Elijah, when Elijah was running from Jezebel,
Mhm.
after he done killed all these prophets or whatever. And he runs to this place and he wanted to die. And so when the angel came to minister to him, the angel wasn't telling him, get up, do this. He wasn't harsh with him. What he did was he fed him. He let him rest. And he ministered to him, and then he was able to have the strength to keep going. And I think that's the part that church has not practiced. The word says,
Mhm.
with loving kindness shall I
Right.
draw you. And so that there's a portion of time, even with us believers, who've had have been hit with life, that we put place balm on the wounded soldier. That's, I think that's
Mhm.
a big missing part of the church that I haven't seen. And when I got hit, I was able to feel it, and I probably needed to get hit, because I was developing into that no nonsense, no, it's either right or wrong. It didn't really have. I thought I did, like, have room for grace, but it's when you needed grace that you understand the value of giving it.
Yeah, that's facts. Facts. That's and it's true. Um, you gotta first of all dive in the word was I think the most essential thing. Because if you don't dive in this word, you're gonna miss a lot of things. You're gonna be upset about a lot of stuff because it's so much to know, it's so much to learn. And then you have to understand um, that you're gonna be upset along this walk. Like you're gonna go through things that don't even make sense. You're gonna go through things that you're probably gonna be like, I need to talk to somebody, and they won't have an answer. And again, that's where God comes in. He's so amazing. and he comforts us. Even when we're upset with him, he comforts us because he understands that we're hurting and we're in distress and we're in pain. And he does come in and remind us to cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. And we have to learn how to start eating the word, literally, in order to be able to make it.
Yeah, I always think of it as prescription.
Yeah, it is.
Because this is a mind battle, and so the
Yeah,
enemy tells you one thing and you have to go to the word to get what God said about the situation, and you have to
absolutely.
recite that. You have to, like, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, while the devil is telling you, you're going down, you can't bounce back from this one. um
You really do. You really do. If you don't eat the word and then throw it back at him, that's how we get God to move, though. That's how we get God to work. We have to feed him back his word. And the Bible says, resist the devil and he'll flee. And that's one of the ways you can get. Listen, the devil's going to start leaving the scene when you start quoting the word because he hears the tone in your voice. He hears the sincerity of you speaking this thing out to him. He like, okay, they mean business. So let me go on because in a minute they keep on saying no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise shall be condemned. You're like, okay, somebody coming to the rescue. So if you begin to speak these things out and you feed the word to God, the enemy hears you when you're feeding God back his word, and God cannot lie. So he's going to have to fulfill what he's promised.
and you know what, too, I want to offer this out, because I just recently, when my granddaughter was being born, we encountered this nurse, and she was telling me how, or telling us rather, how she bought some witchcraft kit to make this guy fall in love with her.
Wow.
So I'm like, and she said that the guy hadn't, I think she was reaching out to him, he wouldn't respond for months and months, and she just really wanted him, so that's why she bought it. And she said when she did what the kid said, the very next day he called, and it freaked her out that she hung up. So I got to thinking, because the word tells us that we ought to be wise as a serpent, but as gentle as doves, that a lot of times we actually need to write out our prayers, write them out, because really is life and death in the power of our tongue. And when we're just praying off the top of our head for something to get through something, when you're not feeling it, it's hard to conjure up the word sometimes.
Mhm.
And
That's why
so
he
taking
said,
time to just,
write your request and make
write
it
it out
known.
and say it, because when you have it and you're reciting it over and over, even when you don't feel like it, you're consistent on the words that you're using, and you're almost like pounding at the situation.
Hmm. That's why he says with prayer and supplication. And supplication means to beg. Supplication means to ask and continue to keep asking. So then he said, write your request and make it known. So when you write it out, you not only are writing, but you're speaking that thing out. And after you do that, you go back to the throne of grace because he said, men ought to always pray and not faint. So those things you're writing out, he said, write your vision, make it plain. We have to do that. And I think a lot of the times when we write it out, that means we speak it to life. And sometimes we're not ready. So if I see it in a visual, I'm like, maybe I'm not ready for that. So we just keep speaking to this thing because sometimes the fear of coming out of something or even going into something new is way more than what we could imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, this next question. Give an example of a time you witnessed to someone who rejected your offer to come to Jesus, and explain how you handled it.
Um, Funny, I just did the other week, like last week. I invited somebody, and I not even to my church. I said, "Hey, listen, you need to start going back to church because they used to go, but then they were wounded in various areas of their lives and just fell away. Upset with God and not really acknowledging that that's what it was when it really was. And their response to me was like, "I'm good. I mean, I'm a good person, and I do a lot to help people." I said, "So are you going to church?" Like, I'm like, "You're in a whole state by yourself. You need to really," because they were telling me all their personal issues, and like, man, I just feel like I'm by myself and things like that. And I said, "Hey, have you started going to church?" "No, I'm a good person. I mean, I'm good." "Are you gonna go to church?" "Uh, I don't really have time. I work a lot, you know. And everything I was bringing up about church, they had an excuse. So what I had really realized was they're not in that place. And I had to accept it because although I love this person, we've been friends forever. And I'm like, you really, really need to go to church. You need to be in a position where the Lord can feed you. And this person does battle with depression. So it was like a whole different level when I was talking to this person, but I had to really fall back. I think I heard you say that a little earlier. Learning when to just kind of fall back and kind of let people be people. And I just, again, I went to the throne on their behalf and literally started praying. Because at the end of the day, I realized that as much as you want God for some people, they got to want. I
Yeah,
can't want
or
God.
it could be that it was just you may have been the third confirmation. Because some people
Mhm.
don't, may when they get alone and they complain the next time, God may be able to, you gave the Holy Spirit something to work with.
Mhm.
Like your solution for your loneliness is to go to church.
Mhm.
So it's not always, sometimes rejection is not always rejection.
Mhm.
It could be
It
that
just
they're
makes
in
me
it.
like,
Yeah. Yeah, and it could, it feels like that on your end, but it has nothing to do with us. A lot of times, it's whatever they're battling with, and God is saying, "I need you to say this." It's like it's like when Peter denied Jesus 3 times.
yes,
That
and
didn't
he
have
told him,
nothing to really do with Jesus. It's just that Peter was scared. He was scared.
yeah,
He had to think about like what he would lose, and these people will turn on me.
exactly.
And he had a family, he had things, it wasn't
Mhm.
about that he was really trying to turn on Jesus. So a lot of
He
times we
just
have
had
to,
a moment of himself.
yeah, it's selfish, but again, I'm learning that this is nothing, it's nothing personal. It's just
No.
we do it,
And you know
stick
what?
and
I'm
move.
I'm I'm glad I didn't even take it personal. I just really, again, coming with maturity. A lot of things I don't take it as a rejection to me. I don't take it as you're angry with me, or I realize life is life, and things are bigger than you, And so even in that instance, I was just like, okay. So after I brought it up like 3 different ways, I tried to read that channel and direct it. I was like, okay, we just gonna leave it right there. This is clearly not what you're trying to do. And I just told him, I said, well, just know this. As like, you conclude a letter or something. I said, in conclusion, I said, I'm just gonna pray that the Lord will, continue to deal with you in your heart and your mind about a church home. He's like, oh man, like I love God or whatever, I just and I just told him, I said, okay. I said, I'm just pray about it. I said, because this is one thing I do know. If I don't know anything else, there's much more for your life than where it is. And that's based on what I know that the Lord was giving me at that moment. And I began to share a few other things with the person. And in the conclusion, he was just like, okay, all right, I'm gonna think about it. And hey, that's fine. That's all I can do. Lord began to work with him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I again, like with the young lady, she was just like, well, no, she's having some problems, and I respected that because again, I've
Yeah.
been there. But
Yeah.
this one was some years ago when I was going to Greater New Birth, and
Mhm.
that being a big church. It was a young lady in the gas station, and I just, had invited her to Greater New Birth. I asked her, you have a church home? She was like, no. And I said, well, I want to invite you to my church. And I told her Greater New Birth. She's like, oh, no, no, I don't do big churches, and they always want your money. And so I let her go on. And I said, I used to think like that too. Like I didn't like big churches, but I shared with her like my pivoting thought moment, which was when my pastor said, things that are not growing are dead. And nobody is attracted to dead things. So, if it was a club where everybody was going to, hey, you'd be like, oh, I got to check it out. So, but I didn't push it on her. I just kind of shared my thoughts. And then even with like the tithe and offering, I was like, yeah, and it took me a minute to get that too. But that's not what they're gonna be. You don't have to worry about that. Just go. You'll see Jesus there. But there's life there. Just kind of explain it to her, and then I just let her go. Yeah, I just said thank you, because I may have just planted something and she may have thought it, but I think a lot of times we need to approach it and be honest of where we used to be. I think that's the best way to approach it, being
That's
being able to be relatable and know that I didn't get
Mhm.
here overnight. Um,
Yes. That's why in these questions that you're asking, I want to make sure that people understand I had to grow and develop to this. Wasn't where I always was. Because we are really overcome by testimonies. And this Christian walk is a walk. And some you gotta crawl before you can walk, you know. And so it's a process to this thing. So I'm learning not to take everything personal because people have personal issues that have nothing to do with you.
mhm.
They really do. They're
Okay, so
greater
now
and bigger.
I was gonna say, so this next one, so I think I know the answer, but do you believe the forced approach to come to Jesus is effective, and why or why not?
I think it depends on the person and the situation.
The forced approach, like you better
Mhm.
come to Jesus, or you gonna burn in hell.
I think some people need a directness. Then there are others you could just say, "Well, listen, sweetheart, if you don't do, you know what I'm saying? It's everybody's different. I'm a type of person. I need a direct approach. You ain't gotta weigh me in the water, sugarcoat. And I'm not saying that that's what you're doing when you're. I'm just saying some people need a more direct. Listen, it's gonna be this or that. Some people need that because it helps to get them in an urgency. When they see your genuineness of why you're saying it the way you're saying it, they know their life is a mess and then they need to hurry up. There are some people know like tomorrow is the death sentence. And it's like, okay, dude, you know what? The Lord sent you right in the nick of time because I was really getting ready to go to the left. And then there's other people you have to give a whole different approach because their mindset is so far gone. It's like, I don't care you tell me that I could die tomorrow. So you got to. It depends on the person.
And see, I disagree. I don't think the force, because it didn't work with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I never seen Jesus do it in scripture. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he argued with the scribes and the Pharisees
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
argued with the church folk because
you
they
did.
were so self-righteous. But
You
his
did.
approach to an unbeliever was never forceful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but and it's, to me, it's like trying to, like, you live in the army, you're an army person, and you're trying to force the army life on civilian. Like you
Mm-hmm.
trying to get them wake up at 4 in the morning and do push-ups. It's like that's, they don't get it. That's not the lifestyle. And this really is a choice because, like we kind of were, touching on earlier, when we come into this thing, your life, he's requiring that our lives be sacrificial. So we really
Mm-hmm.
are trading in our wills for his, and that's a process. It's a process to think, you have these plans and you have, a vision for your life, and to receive God's his salvation, and then learn that he has a plan for you, and that plan looks nothing like your plan. So this is a, it's love is, it's a choice. It's not
Mm-hmm.
forced, and so it's not love if it's forced. So
Mm-hmm. I don't think that when you tell a person, for instance, I'll use a church term. If you tell a person is holiness or hell, or it's heaven or hell, that's that's not a force. It's a direct. It is what it is. And when that's what I mean when I say a force. I'm God doesn't even make you. You know what I mean? Because he's such a gentleman. He's like, listen, choose whom this day you will serve. You have choices in here. But when I say forceful, I mean my authority kicks in. Like, listen, I'm not gonna play with you because you know better. I'm gonna tell you it's holiness or hell. Now there are some people that don't require that. They really don't. They really are trying to get a for real understanding as to why it is that you're saying this to me because they genuinely don't understand. But there are some of us, Sheree, who just understands and just like no. And you really have to call a thing a thing.
But
Like
if they
listen,
want, they get to choose though. That's how I'm
oh,
thinking.
they
If they
do.
know,
They
if
do.
they actually know, they get to choose. At the end of all of this, we
Mhm.
get to choose to be with Jesus or not. And so if that's what they're choosing, that's kind of like what God told me with my dad. I have
Mhm.
been ministering to my dad for like 5 years, and he even said, he's like, if I would have learned the Bible the way you share with me, I probably would have been in church a long time ago. But he still didn't accept it. So
Mhm.
when I got quieted after, my all my little tantrums, he said, "Your dad had his mind made up. He did not want me." Because even the last time I talked to him, which was a Tuesday before they found him on Thursday, um, I told him, "Dad, I think it's about time for you to try my God." And his response was, "Baby, you have such a happy spirit." And that was it. Like he didn't want to, so he actually gets to choose. It's just like that whole going back to a man and a woman. When you said, I'd rather hear, like I would rather for you to just tell me, we got to pull up our big girl drawers, but
Yeah.
I would tell me today. So that's what God is
Yeah.
saying. Tell me
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Do you want me
But
or not? And we get to say no or yay.
yeah, but see, that's the thing though. Even with force, you still get to say yes or no. I just, I don't know. Like I look at my children. We don't chastise all of our children the same.
Mm-mm.
You, I could say something to Mariana that I in one way, and she'll be like melting, and I can say the same thing to Bailey, and she'll be like, "Okay, mom, you're right. Yeah, I can just go directly there." But the other one, I'm gonna have to coast my way through because she receives things totally different. And she will take it as, Mike, you're yelling at me. And I got another one to be like, Mike, you know what? I appreciate you just said it directly how it is because, yeah, you're right. This and not because I'm looking for you to say I'm right or wrong, but you realize that what was just spoke was truth. And I guess that's what I mean when I say force. I can't. I can take you to the pond all day, but I still can't make you drink no water.
Right. And
You know
I
what
mean,
I mean?
like I said, it just didn't work for me like that.
Yeah,
Or with a lot of people, they were choosing God out of fear, and that's
yeah,
not, it's like no, he doesn't want you to be fearful. Well, in a way of reverence, but not in a way of like I'm serving you because I'm scared. Because it's just like you with a guy or guys with a girl, and they give you this ultimatum. And obviously, there's a reason why there was some hesitation. So now, if I
mhm.
say, okay, I'm going to be with you, that means that I'm overriding something that had me hesitant. So it may
And I
be, I
probably
really
just
don't
said,
love you, but I'm with you. I don't want to leave because you are my meal ticket right now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you want people to choose you. Love is choosing.
it
Love is
is.
choosing. So I that's why my personal belief is like the force thing, like you can be adamant when when you feel like they're interested because they're not
Yeah,
probably listening anyway. A lot of times they'll, when you're forcing, because our kids do that. Like, I don't want to hear it. They
yeah,
just don't, they ain't hear nothing you said, but you done did all
yep,
of this. And that was
yeah.
me,
And
because
then
girl, I be
you got one who will process it and be like, you know, I thought about what you said, and you got another one who's gonna have to buy a receipt. It it is what it is, and that's us in this day to day life. We really are gonna have to buy a receipt. And like we said earlier, I'd rather for somebody to keep it real with me. Hey, listen, I know your feelings might be hurt, but let me just tell you, I did what I did for the convenience of the situation at the time. I am not gonna like it, most definitely. But you know what? I would appreciate you telling me that in advance because then I have an option to choose if this is what I want to do or not do. And Cameron didn't really give her that choice. He just kind of went with the flow of the situation. And then voila. And then he wake up and decide, hey, I don't want to keep faking this relationship thing because you probably think we're in one, and I'm paraphrasing, but we're not. that's yeah, that's not working.
Yeah, don't
You
make me
know,
invest stuff in something that's not real. Like me,
exactly.
I'm so like, and I'm being careful on this love thing. Like, what are we doing? We need to be, if the word says, how can two walk together unless they agree? I want to walk together. I want a partner. We need to be
Yeah,
on the same page. And even, be willing to come together and just realign. Like, I want you to love me by choice, and I want to love you by choice. It needs to be a choice.
exactly.
I'm not forcing nobody to love me, and I don't want nobody
Okay.
forcing me to love them because I've been through that too. That craziness, that ain't fun.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess I want to conclude with this, with sharing and witnessing to people for those who do, and they feel some kind of way when people don't receive them, to know like It's nothing personal, and that what you share, it is actually very valuable. Again, one planted, another watereth, and then God brings the increase. You're part of a planting series. And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
do know that whatever what God put on your heart, you share it. It is up to the person to receive it, but just know that you sharing it matters. I mean, I've had people who, because some people even kind of, they feel sometimes when you share stuff, they feel vulnerable. And so they
Yes.
may, pull back. Oh, no, no, I'm not feeling that way. I'm
Mhm.
good. Or like if you, especially when you're walking in the prophetic and you're like, God kind of showed me that you're feeling lonely. Oh, no, no, that's not me. Almost like of shame. So it's not, but you still say what you're supposed to say anyway.
You know what? When you have a job to do, when he gives you something to say, you just have to say it. And people really do when they decide to be real with themselves. They will reflect back on who God sent them for a specific word for a specific time. And we as Christians, as believers, have to remember that we have a job to do. And we have to make sure because he said the harvest is right, but the laborers are few. And so when we do get ready to go and stand before God before judgment, and they get ready to do the roll call of your resume, it's gonna have to look at how many souls did you win to Christ? Who did you tell about God? Who did you know what I'm saying? So when you think about it in that regard, um, I want to live the life that God will be pleased with. So God is pleased when I'm telling a dying world about Him. And so once I tell them, not try to handcuff you to make you come to Jesus, but when I tell and share my testimonies, when I share the goodness of the Lord with you, you at that point have a decision or a choice to make if you want to follow the God that I'm talking about. Because you have to be real enough with yourself, real enough with your testimonies that when you share it with the world that needs to know that he is still in the healing business. He is still in the blessing business. He's still performing miracles. That is our job as servants. That is our job as Christians who have relationships with God. We have to share with a dying world that he saves and that he still loves. Despite that new mercy every day is something that's been standing in my spirit faithfully lately. He says new mercy every day. So every day we got a job to do. Every day we got to get up despite the rejections, despite people looking like, oh my God, here she come. Oh my God, here he come. You got a job to do.
Yeah,
So if I
and I
can,
want to encourage people not to lose their personality, because a lot of
yeah,
times I think the old school churches kind of made us conform into this, like almost a copycat of each other, and
hmm,
they've dumbed down, like totally stripped your personality. And it's like, no, God gave us this personality on purpose, and the way you are, still use
yeah,
that. Let him use your personality. Like don't become
I
dry
do.
and square and oh
Yeah.
my God, I just, because I'm not letting people put me in a box. Whatever he put on my heart,
You
I'm
have
gonna do
to,
it.
and you have to be ready to reach people like where they are. It's so funny that you said that. I was bringing the word, and the Lord gave me to tell. It was you today. I'm speaking to the youth, and I'm a youth president. So I'm talking to the youth this Sunday, and I said, thank you, Holy Ghost, because I can hear him say, "Tell them get out the way." And so me not knowing whoever Ludacris is, so the young people came up to me, and I was doing a demonstration like, "Hey, get out the way," like, but I didn't know that that was a rapper, whoever this
Oh,
guy
you
is. So
didn't?
no, I didn't. So they were like, "Sister Grady, Sister Grady, oh, let me tell you something, let me tell you something." They was like, "Do you really know what you was saying?" And I was like, yeah, the Lord told me to get out the way. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm all theatrical because I do demonstrations sometimes when I'm up speaking, however the Lord gave it to me at that moment. So I was like, I'm like, y'all, I keep hearing this song. I said, I don't know where I hear it from, but I just keep hearing, get out the way, get out the way. I said, we as the people are in the way. But the young people were like, yeah, ooh, this great. Do you know what that song? I was like, no, because I know what's the song. But it tickled me. And I said all that to say, I have to be uniquely Curetia. I don't even know how to be mother evangelist, missionary, whoever these people are. But what I do know is that the uniqueness that God has put in me to be able to share with people. I have to be me because I want you to be able to receive what it is God has given me, the messenger, to give the message. So I can't be this super deep, don't smile. Listen, you need to come to God. And all of that's true. But if maybe that's how preacher so and so or whoever else is to deliver a word, I can't be TD Jakes. I can't be Sarah Jakes, but I can be me. And the Lord will anoint me to be me, even in my personality.
Yeah,
As long as,
and he calls because there's so many different varieties of people, and some people
yeah,
receive messages different ways. So you may be a person who has let's say dry humor, and you got
mm-hmm.
there's an audience for that. But like me, I'm corny. It's like there's an audience for this, but I'm also deep. Because I've been through
Yeah,
some deep stuff.
yes,
But
yes,
I'm
yes,
corny, so
yes,
there's an audience for that. So I'm just saying, like, he's trying to reach the whole world. And so he can't reach the
yes,
whole world. We all looking the same. We all dried up. And don't nobody want that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't nobody want no dried up. I just don't. Well,
yes.
I ain't gonna say don't nobody. There's some people who want that. So let me
Well,
retract.
it
But I'm
depends
just
on
saying
where
everybody
you're.
don't. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
humor. I like to smile. I don't think we're gonna be in heaven like looking like we constipated. I really think because this is some things that God has done in my life. I'm like, this is humorous. I think he
but
got a sense of
he
humor.
said, I'm positive he does because he said laughter is good for the soul. I believe that there are things that we do. He probably get tickled about, like,
I'm
now,
sure.
it's like, Karita, I know, you know better. And it's like, if you think about some of the things you've done yourself, you'd be like, you know what? I shouldn't even, I don't even know what I was thinking about. And you can get laughter after your own stuff. Hey, I'm bona fide guaranteed that he look at us and get tickled because yeah, we do the most.
Yeah, because I love Jesus with all my heart and all my little
Oh, me
soul and all
too.
my little strength, even when I'm
Yes,
low. But even
yes.
today, like my son, he's a truck driver. So
Mhm.
we're on the phone talking, and he was having an issue trying to back the truck up. I said, well, let me let you off the phone so you can back that thing up. And he was like, Mama. But that is totally me, and I truly love
Yes.
Jesus.
Well,
So,
listen, I didn't know nothing about Ludacris, but hey, it was a point that had to be made when he kept saying, "Get out the way." And the louder I got when I projected it, the young people was like, "Get, oh, this is great. Do you know what you said?" I was like, "Yeah, get out the way." But when I learned, I said, "Oh." They was like, "You gotta listen to the song." I was like, "No, he didn't give me the rest of the song. He gave me get out the way because there was purpose in that part." I said, "So whatever else y'all be doing," I said, "I'm trying to get y'all to get hype about moving out of the way." So when I was doing hand motions, they were associating that with the song. But again, that's me. How he gives me to be able to reach these young people. No, I don't. Other stuff, yeah.
yeah,
And
and I
we,
think we've sanitized a lot. We've sanitized Jesus's purpose. And even like with people who cuss, oh my God, and it's really we're offended. Jesus is not offended by that. Cuss words don't offend him. He died for all sin. I mean, do you know how deep sin can get? So it's like cussing is not gonna throw him off. And that really, I got that revelation when I watched that movie, The Shack. I think I read the book first.
okay.
But
I
this
don't
it was
think
this movie, The Shack, where this man, he grew. I think he grew up. I know his wife was a avid believer in Christ, and he ended up taking his kids on this camping trip. And while one of his kids was drowning, he was out there saving them. Somebody kidnapped his little girl. I think she was like 6 or 7. And when they found her, she was murdered in this shack. And so he was struggling with forgiving God and believing in God again. And his wife had went on this weekend trip, and I think he fell or something. But then the movie goes into him going back to, like, almost God calling him back to the shack. And so he actually visits it and sees the blood stain of his daughter. And then he's angry, and he kind of has a little fit in there. And then when he walks out, the whole scene changed, and it was like summer, and flowers grew, and it was the snow had melted, and it was it was a beautiful scene. And then he looked back at the shack and it was beautiful. And when he went back, it took a while, but sitting on the porch, we realized it was God, you know, but he was in human form and he was a lady. And then Jesus was this guy. I think he was a Jewish guy, and then the Holy Spirit was this woman, and I think she kept kind of like moving this way, and it was just very creative how he did that. And there was this one scene where God was washing the dishes, and he was listening to some rap, and so they were swearing, you know. Well, at least in the book, when I read it in the book, you know, they were swearing. And I was like, oh. And he was like, I especially like this, love these kids. So it was just showing how we have put all these stipulations on people and made people feel like you're not good enough and you have to clean up before you come into the church. And God is saying, no, come as you are, and I can show you how dope I am by cleaning you up. You know, so
Mhm.
you know, we're supposed to be allowing, you know, prostitute, you know, everybody in it's a hospital. And people who swear, that does not intimidate him. And so I had to realize that, because you didn't even write in my books, at least the last two, I really was, girl, I was so, with provoked to anger, I was so nervous. My kids had to help me. And they was like, Ma. But I was in my cuss words were you know, it was a purpose for it, because it was like these situations when you're getting raped, ain't nobody sitting there talking sweet to you. And a lot of these were birthed off of real life stories. So I actually have dumbed them down. And I feel like one of the reasons why a lot of believers don't have compassion for people is because they don't want to hear, they don't like to hear the whole story. We make, we'll say come as you are, or you know, you need some help, but when people start telling some stuff too deep, we be like, okay, that's enough now, like she didn't have to tell all that, like for real, we do that. I've seen it. We do that. But when you hear the full story, you can understand this is why they're the way they are. But you know, but so in Provoke to Anger, we deal with sex trafficking, and I'm listening to these girls' stories and I'm bawling. And so, like I said, I did like the process they have to go through to get prepared to service these Johns. Cuss words, that was the least, after reading and hearing all that, that was the least of my concerns. And I realized, like, nope, God is calling me. We need to hear it this way. And so a lot of my reviewers, most of them were like, "Oh, this is great, this is great." But the ones that I got 3 out of 4, they were saying, "You know, I love the storyline. It really spoke to me, but she could have used other words besides the cuss words. I see where she was going." And it's usually believers who feel like they can't handle it. That's your ears. Because God is hearing all that stuff as we go. You know, He heard when you was, I'm sure, when you had the temptation and you slept around on your wife, or your fiance, it was some stuff that was said that was unholy. So you don't tell me that, you know, you get what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
act like,
Well, this is a thing when I like that you quoted the scripture when he said, "Come as you are." I tell people all the time, he's not talking about your clothes. I mean, and if you just want to be technicality, okay, if you ain't got nothing else, yeah, come as you are. But he was really focusing on souls, because how do you come into something clean, but you're unclean, and you like, well, okay, come in. That's why I told you to come like you are, because you can't save yourself. You can't change yourself, but God can. You know what I mean? So we can't do anything without God. So I'm a big promoter on. As a matter of fact, get my super deep folk out the way. Go get me the prostitute. Go get me the drug addict. Go get me. You know what I'm saying? Those people, because when I see God turn those people into something that just words can't even express, honey, that's some serious stuff. You know, that's what I'm talking about. I want to see that. I want to see that happen, because that to me is amazing.
yeah, yeah. But at the end of the day, it's God is doing the cleaning. It's not us, and we need to get
Exactly.
out the way, because we're in
Yeah.
the way. We've been in the way, and we need to get out the way and let God do His job.
Yeah. Just let God be God, for real. You know, that's why I said, go give me those people on the streets. Go give me those people. Because some of us have become too cute, too dignified, too, you know, oh my goodness. Please let them come in and have a seat. I've seen alcoholics get delivered in rehearsals before. Like God did miraculous things. Go get those people, because we have a dying world that's full of those type of people who need to know that He can deliver. Who needs to know that your situation is not that bad. Because sometimes we really think we're the only ones going through until we hear somebody else's story. And you be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, but
So
if we
we,
never hear somebody else's story, when we always,
yeah.
ooh, this is too much for me. Oh my God. How can we help them? How can we help them? There is a difference between saved folk and church folk. The difference is
Mhm.
that saved folk have compassion because either they've
Mhm.
been through it or they put themselves in the situation because they actually sat down with the person and heard their story.
Mhm.
Hey, Rock family. You know, sometimes certain topics can trigger old emotions. So, if at any point during this head trauma discussion season you feel you need to talk to someone, please do. And for some reason, if you do not have access to a trusted source, feel free to check out some of our recommendations by visiting www.rockwithmenow.com. Once at the homepage, select the Rock Challenges tab and then filter through the list available to see what may possibly suit you. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.